What happens when Hollywood stops guessing and actually gets history right? Not just uniforms and accents, but the real chaos, courage, and sheer luck that define the world's greatest conflict. Across decades, filmmakers have tried to recreate missions so bold they sounded like fiction until the truth surfaced. From doomed airborne drops to secret deceptions so wild they fooled entire armies. These are the rare moments when the screen matched reality closer than anyone expected. Let's start with the landings that changed everything. The Longest Day, 1962. It began before dawn. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of men, and the fate of Europe hanging by a thread. Operation Overlord D-Day was the largest amphibious invasion in history. Most films turn it into a blur of heroism, but The Longest Day actually respected the chaos. Released in 1962, it stitched together every angle: American, British, Canadian, even German. You see paratroopers dropping in pitch-black skies, French villagers waking to thunder, and generals staring at maps with trembling hands. What made it remarkable wasn't just scale, it was accuracy. The filmmakers used real veterans as consultants. Some of the actors played men who were still alive, men who had lived that impossible morning. And when the beaches ignite, it's not polished action, it's confusion, sand smoke, and panic. Even the little moments hit hard. The priest giving last rites mid-surf, the radio operator losing signal at the worst second. Sure, it's old-school Hollywood with its stiff dialogue and heroic framing, but the bones of truth run deep. For the first time, audiences didn't see D-Day as just a victory, they saw it as survival by inches. The Longest Day proved that war stories don't need exaggeration to feel epic. They just need honesty, sweat, and the sound of waves crashing over men who didn't know if they'd make it to shore. A bridge too far. 1977. Few plans looked more daring on paper or failed more spectacularly in practice than Operation Market Garden. In September 1944, the Allies tried to leapfrog through the Netherlands by seizing bridges behind enemy lines. The plan: end the war by Christmas. The reality: chaos, bad weather, and broken communication. Hollywood could have turned it into another glossy victory story, but A Bridge Too Far didn't flinch. Released in 1977, it gave us a massive ensemble cast: Sean Connery, Anthony Hopkins, Gene Hackman, and still found room for tragedy. The film's secret weapon? Brutal honesty. Every mistake that doomed the mission is shown. The missed signals, the wrong drop zones, the desperate stand at Arnhem Bridge where soldiers fought until their last bullet and last breath. Director Richard Attenborough didn't sugarcoat it. He let the operation collapse in real time. Tanks stuck on narrow roads, supplies dropped to the wrong units. Commanders realizing too late that optimism had turned into a death trap. It wasn't the kind of ending audiences were used to, but that's what made it real. A Bridge Too Far reminded viewers that not every great operation ended with fireworks. Sometimes courage isn't about winning, it's about holding the line when the plan falls apart. For once, Hollywood told the story of failure with the same respect usually reserved for triumph. Their Finest, 2016. When the evacuation at Dunkirk turned chaos into legend, it didn't just inspire soldiers, it fueled storytellers. Their Finest, released in 2016, shines a light on the other side of Operation Dynamo, the people who turned disaster into hope using nothing but film reels and imagination. It's not a combat story, it's about how Britain kept its courage alive through storytelling when everything else was falling apart. Set in 1940, the movie follows a team of filmmakers tasked with creating a morale-boosting feature based on the real rescue. Through smoky studios and rationed coffee, they piece together scenes meant to inspire a nation on its knees. Yet as the bombs fall outside the line between fiction and survival begins to blur, the film within a film mirrors the evacuation itself: chaotic, fragile, and unexpectedly heroic. What makes Their Finest brilliant is how it shows truth wrapped in illusion. There are no battlefields or grand speeches, just writers, actors, and technicians fighting despair with creativity. The Dunkirk story becomes a lifeline for them, a way to remind ordinary citizens that courage isn't limited to the front lines. It's subtle, funny, and heartbreakingly human. And while it may not show the beaches themselves, it captures the emotional core of Operation Dynamo better than most war dramas, the stubborn belief that even in the darkest hour, stories can save people. Their finest proves that history isn't only written by generals, sometimes it's preserved by those behind the camera rolling film as the sirens wail. Operation Mincemeat, 2021. Now for one of the strangest and smartest plots of the entire war. Operation Mincemeat wasn't about combat, it was about deception. In 1943, British intelligence planted fake invasion plans on a corpse, dressed it as an officer, and let the enemy discover it. The goal? Trick them into defending the wrong coast before the Allied invasion of Sicily. The idea sounds like spy movie nonsense. But it really happened, and it worked. The 2021 film Operation Mincemeat, starring Colin Firth, finally gave this wild story the tone it deserved. Part espionage, part dark comedy, all truth. The film nails the absurdity and the genius of it. Secret agents arguing over the contents of a dead man's briefcase. Analysts debating what kind of love letter would make the deception believable. And through it all, a quiet awareness of the stakes, thousands of lives depending on a single illusion. Unlike older war epics that glorified explosions, Operation Mincemeat celebrates the power of imagination in wartime. It shows that sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't made of steel, it's a story. When the operation succeeded, enemy forces scrambled in the wrong direction, saving countless Allied troops. It's one of those rare war films that proves intelligence can be as thrilling as action. The film might feel understated, but that's its strength. It mirrors the quiet, strange bravery of people who fought with lies instead of bullets. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, 2024. By the early 1940s, conventional warfare had limits, and a few daring minds in British intelligence decided to rewrite the rulebook. Their experiment was Operation Postmaster, a covert mission off the coast of Africa where agents seized enemy ships in a neutral harbor. It was a move so unorthodox, it birthed the blueprint for modern special operations. Guy Ritchie's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, 2024, brings this real-life operation roaring back to life with swagger and style. It's loud, funny, and gloriously unapologetic, but surprisingly, it's grounded in truth. The film celebrates the misfits who refuse to play by traditional rules. These weren't polished officers, they were rogues, adventurers, and thinkers who turned chaos into strategy. The movie leans into that tone with dry wit and kinetic pacing. You get wild humor and stylish visuals, yet the backbone of the story remains faithful. A small group changing the shape of the war through creativity and nerve. Beneath the jokes and explosions lies a powerful point. Innovation doesn't come from committees, it comes from risk-takers. What the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare captures perfectly is the attitude behind the mission. Audacity. When traditional warfare hit a wall, these outlaws found a door and kicked it open. It's not your granddad's history lesson, but that's the charm. For once, Hollywood didn't clean up the chaos. It embraced it, and in doing so finally got this wild slice of wartime genius right. The Cockleshell Heroes, 1955. It sounds like something out of a tall tale. A handful of men in folding canoes sneaking into an enemy harbor to sabotage ships under the cover of night. But Operation Frankton was real, one of the most daring raids of the entire conflict. In December 1942, 10 British Marines paddled more than 70 miles down the Gironde River toward Bordeaux. Their mission: cripple enemy cargo ships supplying the front lines. Most didn't come back. Only 2 survived. But their bravery changed the game for maritime sabotage. When the Cockleshell Heroes hit screens in 1955, audiences expected a standard adventure flick. What they got was a surprisingly grounded tribute. Beneath its mid-century optimism and clipped British manners, the film captures something rarely shown: cold exhaustion, silence, and the eerie beauty of men rowing into danger with no backup. The production was advised by real veterans, including the original commander, Major Blondie Hasler. They insisted the film honor the reality-freezing nights, broken paddles, the terror of getting spotted by searchlights. There are no fake heroics here, no miracle rescues, just courage measured stroke by stroke. It may lack the flash of modern war epics, but that's its strength. The Cockleshell Heroes reminds us that sometimes the most extraordinary missions happen far from the spotlight. No tanks, no parades, just grit, endurance, and a river that refused to give them mercy. Hollywood for once didn't exaggerate. It just listened. The Seawolves, 1980. Before the world had heard of stealth missions, a group of aging volunteers pulled off one in real life. Operation Creek, conducted in March 1943, targeted enemy ships anchored in neutral Goa, India territory, where open fighting was forbidden. The agents? Retired British soldiers and civilians from a local club called the Calcutta Light Horse. It sounds like a pub story after too many drinks, but it actually happened. The Seawolves, released in 1980, brought that almost forgotten mission roaring back. Gregory Peck, Roger Moore, and David Niven led the cast, but the real star was the operation's audacity. The film shows how these so-called old men volunteered for a mission nobody official could authorize. They knew if it went wrong, their government would deny everything. Still, they loaded up an old ship, crept into the harbor at night, and took out the threat successfully. What makes the movie surprisingly accurate is its respect for the absurdity. It doesn't hide the wrinkles, the nerves, or the disbelief. These weren't elite commandos, they were amateurs with guts and a sense of duty that refused to die quietly. While the film adds a little cinematic flair, some gunfire here, a bit of spy intrigue there, it nails the emotional truth. Bravery doesn't check your birth certificate. The Seawolves captures the strange mixture of nostalgia and danger that defined this real operation. It's proof that heroism can wear gray hair and a dinner jacket. Battle of Britain, 1969. There's a reason this one shares its title with the event itself. In the summer of 1940, the sky over England became the front line. The Battle of Britain was fought by outnumbered pilots flying outdated planes against overwhelming odds, and somehow they won. When the 1969 film Battle of Britain arrived, it set a new bar for authenticity. Director Guy Hamilton didn't rely on miniatures or stock footage. He assembled one of the largest collections of real vintage aircraft ever filmed, more than 100 flyable planes, and recreated the aerial duels as they actually unfolded. There's no CGI, no shaky cameras, just pure skyborne choreography and the terrifying beauty of flight. The film also gets the emotional rhythm right. It's not non-stop combat, it's exhaustion punctuated by seconds of chaos. Pilots scramble, wait, and joke nervously, knowing every takeoff could be their last. It humanizes the defenders without turning them into invincible heroes. Even the opposition gets its due, shown as disciplined and deadly rather than cartoon villains. Critics sometimes call Battle of Britain too procedural, but that's the point. It's less about individual glory and more about collective survival. Watching it, you feel the grind, the fatigue, the dwindling fuel, the smoke drifting across the English coast. When the credits roll, you understand victory not as celebration, but as relief. Few films have ever honored the mechanics and emotion of aerial warfare so precisely. It's history rendered in engine roar and cloud light, and for once, Hollywood didn't fake the altitude. The Dam Busters, 1955. Before drones and guided bombs, engineers had to invent miracles by hand. Operation Chastise in May 1943 was exactly that, a mission to destroy enemy dams with bouncing bombs that skipped over water like stones. It sounds impossible, but it worked, and the Dam Busters 1955 captured that mixture of math and madness perfectly. The real brilliance of the mission lay in invention. Engineer Barnes Wallace designed the spinning explosives, and the pilots trained for months to drop them at just the right height and speed. Miss by a few feet and everything failed. The movie treats that technical obsession like high drama because it was. Viewers see sleepless nights, endless testing, and the quiet despair of failure before the final success. When the raid begins, the tension is suffocating. You hear engines echoing off the hills, watch spotlights sweep the reservoirs, and feel every second stretch as bombs skip toward their targets. There's triumph, but also loss. Many airmen never returned. Unlike modern war films that chase spectacle, the Dam Busters finds emotion in precision. It's about innovation under pressure, courage without showmanship, and the strange poetry of men risking everything for an idea that might not work. Its legacy even extended into later cinema. Some of its sequences inspired scenes in Star Wars. But long before that galaxy far away, the Dam Busters proved that true suspense doesn't need fiction, it just needs truth and a ticking clock. Tora, 1970. When it comes to accuracy, Tora is practically a textbook in motion. Released in 1970, it tackled one of the most complex operations ever filmed, the surprise attack that pulled the United States into the global conflict. But unlike most films before it, this one did something radical. It told the story from both sides. American and Japanese directors worked together, shooting two halves of the same story and then weaving them into one film. The result? A rare balance of perspective. You see not just the shock of the attack, but the long chain of misunderstandings, missed warnings, and overconfidence that led to it. The attention to detail is staggering. The filmmakers rebuilt airfields, replicated aircraft, and even used original radio codes. Nothing feels staged, it feels observed. Instead of focusing on melodrama, the movie treats the event like a grim chain reaction, cause and effect unfolding with chilling inevitability. What makes Tora endure is its refusal to paint anyone as superhuman or purely evil. It's about systems, pride, and timing. When the attack hits, there's no background music shouting heroism, just the raw sound of chaos and disbelief. For decades, it's been considered one of the most faithful cinematic portrayals of any historical operation. It's long, methodical, and sometimes painfully slow, but that's how reality works. Tora didn't just get the event right, it got the feeling of inevitability right, and that's something very few war movies can claim. Malta Story, 1953. Imagine a small island in the middle of the sea, bombed daily for years, holding out when the rest of Europe was falling. That was Malta between 1940 and 1942, a speck on the map that became a fortress. The Siege of Malta was one of the longest and most brutal air campaigns of the war. Supplies ran so low that people starved while fighter pilots took off, knowing they might not have enough fuel to return. When Malta Story arrived in 1953, it could have easily become propaganda. Instead, it captured the endurance of an island and its people with quiet, grounded realism. Alec Guinness plays a reconnaissance pilot trying to keep the skies open while civilians struggle to stay alive amid bombed cathedrals and crumbling streets. The film doesn't shout about heroism, it whispers it through exhaustion. What made Malta Story different was its use of real locations and actual wartime footage. The ruins you see on screen aren't set pieces, they're real scars from the siege. It's a rare war film that treats endurance as an act of defiance. Every flight, every message intercepted, every loaf of bread baked under blackout curtains feels monumental. By the end, there's no triumphant cheer, no marching bands. Just a collective sigh of survival. It's understated, almost too restrained by modern standards, but that's what makes it powerful. Malta Story doesn't dramatize Malta's suffering, it preserves it. It's a snapshot of a nation that refused to surrender even when the world forgot it was still fighting. Overlord, 1975. Before the boats hit the beaches, before the cameras showed, soldiers storming sand and surf. There were the airborne divisions. Dropped behind enemy lines in the dead of night, their mission was to disrupt defenses and clear the path for D-Day's success. The film Overlord from 1975 doesn't share its title by accident. It's about those paratroopers who jumped first into darkness and chaos. Directed by Stuart Cooper, Overlord is one of the most haunting depictions of the invasion ever made. It mixes real archival footage with staged scenes so seamlessly that you often can't tell what's genuine and what's recreated. The story follows one young British soldier from training to his final jump, weaving his personal fears into the vast machinery of war. There's no Hollywood gloss here, just eerie calm before the storm. Letters home, faces lit by barrack lamps, parachutes billowing like ghosts over the French countryside. It's poetic, grim, and painfully human. Instead of glorifying combat, Overlord feels like an elegy for every nameless man who vanished before sunrise on June 6th. This film got it right not by scale, but by emotion. It captured the feeling of being small inside something enormous, how courage and fear can live in the same breath. The airborne operations were essential to victory, but they came at an unimaginable cost. Overlord honors that reality without embellishment. It doesn't just show history, it breathes it. So there you have it, 12 operations where Hollywood actually respected the truth. No fantasy, no overblown speeches, just the real pulse of human endurance under impossible pressure. These films prove you don't need exaggeration to feel awe, just honesty, detail, and courage that doesn't fade in retelling. Which of these do you think captured reality best? Drop your thoughts below, and remember, history's greatest stories don't need rewriting. They just need remembering.